My dear young brother, the young guys that are here, if you're fasting, staying at home and watching movies, you're not fasting. You're not fasting. Because your heart is still giving in to the wrong temptations. The entire exercise of fasting is you constantly remember, yeah, just like I'm fighting my stomach, just like I'm fighting my throat, I gotta fight my eyes. I gotta fight my mouth. I gotta fight my tongue. I gotta fight my desires. I gotta fight my hormones. I have a fight with everything now. The thing we see is the drinking and the eating. But everything else, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. If we don't remember this, then we become just like Banu Israel. They fasted, but they didn't have what? They didn't have taqwa. Man, they didn't have taqwa, but they fasted. If you forget why you're given the fast, then you're just doing what Bani Israel did. Allah said to you, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمْ الصِّيَامِ عَلَيْكُمْ مُقَدَّم. This is called مفعول جار مجرور مقدم. Especially on you, it's your turn now. I'm giving you what I gave to them. They did not benefit from fasting. They didn't get taqwa. Hopefully you will get taqwa. That's what Allah is saying. That's what Allah is saying when He gave us fasting. What is the first thing people think of when they think of fasting? They think of iftar. They think of iftar. Fasting is your training for real life. And by the way, I told you, when training goes on, then it's easier. Controlled fire, controlled situations. What does Allah do? Does Allah make fasting in Ramadan easier? Does He cage up shaitan? Does He put the shaitan away? He does, doesn't He? He's going easy on you. So your heart can get a chance to train and get better without being in the battlefield. The second Ramadan is over, Eid Mubarak, guess what? Shaitan is out. And the war begins. And all of that training will now come in handy. But if you didn't train yourself properly, Look, just to help the younger guys here, this is for the younger guys especially. If a guy wants to join the army, he has to go through physical training. So they make the guy jump over a wall or climb a wall and go on the other side. So two guys join the military. One of them jumps over the wall, the other one goes around the wall. They both got to the other side. You have to do it 10 times. One guy jumps over it 10 times, the other guy walks over it 10 times. Right? Now when they're on the battlefield and they have to go over a wall, who's going to go and who's going to fail? You understand? They both can say, I did it, I made it to the finish line. Well, that's what you wanted, to reach the finish line. I did it. You will fast and your brother will fast, but your fasting will not be the same. It won't be the same. The guy who applied himself and actually trained himself and the guy who didn't train himself, they're not going to get the same results. Now let's move on. Allah says, أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ. أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ, which means very few days. You know what that means? The ayah I just talked to you about is not about Ramadan. This is not Ramadan yet. The word ma'dudat in Arabic grammar, they call this jam'u qillah, which means less than 10, 9 or less. 9 or less. Which means this ayah is about the old fasting. The fasting before Ramadan, which was on the same days as the Jews. Or the middle 3 days of the month and all of that. Few days. Allah says, I've made fasting mandatory on you just like the old nation. Meaning just like them, same days as them. أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ. فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ. If any of you is sick or you're traveling, then you can make it up later. وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. And the people who don't have the ability to do that, they can't make it up, then they can feed a poor person. So now I'm going to remind you, so you pay attention. There are 2 things you can do if you miss the fast. This is before Ramadan. What did Allah tell the Muslims? There's 2 things you can do. What are the 2 things? You tell me. What's the first thing? No, if you miss the fast, what can you do? You can make it up. You can make it up. What's the second thing you can do? Feed the poor. It's 2 options. There's 2 ways you can fix it. 2 ways to fix it. Remember that. 2 ways to fix it. But 2 ways to fix it before Ramadan or after Ramadan? No. This is before Ramadan came down. These ayat are not about Ramadan. These ayat are, Muslims didn't know about Ramadan yet. They just knew about the fasting like the fasting of the Jews. And if you fast those few days and you miss them, you can make it up or you can feed a poor person. Okay. Then Allah says, وَمَنْ تَطَوَّعَ خَيْرًا فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ. Now if you give a poor person sadaqah or you feed a poor person, or you volunteer to make up the day. Allah says if you volunteer to make up the day, it's better for you. It's better. Even though I'm giving you both options, you should make it up. Okay? But it's not, you're not sinful if you feed the poor person. This is what the Sahaba had. Okay. وَأَن تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. If you fast, it's better for you. If you knew, fine. Now Allah talks about Ramadan. So I want you to understand the history first. When the Muslims first heard about fasting, the Sahaba heard about fasting, radiallahu anhum ajma'een, it was less than 10 days. Number one. There were two ways to get out of it. Number two. And even if you want to volunteer, you can make it up. But you have the option. You have the option. Okay. Now Allah says, Shahru Ramadan. The month of Ramadan. This is the next ayah. This is the only ayah actually about the fasting of Ramadan in the Quran. This is the one. الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ. Now listen, I told you, when people think of Ramadan, what's the first thing that comes in their head? Iftar, pakode, samosa. Make sure you have enough ketchup in the house, you know. You go extra shopping for all the sodas and all things. People, Muslims usually, they don't lose weight in Ramadan, we gain weight in Ramadan. Right? That's our practice. Even fasting. Even when you think of Ramadan, the first thing you think of is fasting. If you don't think of the food, at least you think of fasting. Or you say, man, Ramadan this year is coming in the summer. Oh, this is going to be hard. That's the thought that goes in your head. Allah says in the Quran, the first thing you should think about when you hear the word Ramadan, Shahru Ramadan, الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. Not الذي كتب فيه الصيام. الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. The month in which Quran came down. Ramadan, the month in which the Quran came down. The thing that makes Ramadan special is not the fasting. The thing that makes Ramadan special is the Quran. That is Allah telling us. That is Allah telling us. Now you have to ask yourself, if you are fasting in Ramadan, but you don't recite any Quran, you're fasting in Ramadan, but you didn't memorize not even one page, the whole 30 days, not even half a page, not even 2 ayahs. You didn't memorize anything in Quran, from the Quran. Then how do you understand what Allah is saying? The entire purpose of Ramadan is to celebrate the Quran. I told you the first thing you need for a nation is a capital. What's the new capital? Kaaba. The second thing you need for a nation is a constitution. What's the constitution? Quran. And when the constitution is written and passed, then every nation celebrates. Every nation that has a constitution has a constitution day. The day on which their constitution was implemented. They have that day. Okay? Our constitution is celebrated, it was revealed in the month of Ramadan. Allah didn't give us one day to celebrate. He gave us 30 days to celebrate the coming of the Quran. This is, the month of Ramadan is the celebration of the fact that Allah made us an ummah. Now we have our own capital, and we have our own constitution, and we have our own days of fasting. No longer the same as the days of the Jews. No more ayyam ma'dudat. Now it's Shahr Ramadan. They did not have Shahr Ramadan. So Allah distinguished us from the previous nation now completely. Now it's done. Now if you want to consider yourself, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, you got to change the direction you pray, and you got to change the days you fast. You don't have the option. You know, before they were told, وَارْكَعُوا مَعَ الرَّاكِعِينَ. They were told you can make ruku' with those who make ruku', and they might not have had a problem with that. Why? Because it's still in the same direction, but now it's changed. It's gone now. By the way, on a side note, recently I made friends with a rabbi back in Texas. And he's a research scholar in Judaic studies. And I talked to him about Musa alayhi salam and other things. We talk about other. So I asked him one day, when you guys pray, do you have ruku'? The Quran says about the Jews, وَارْكَعُوا مَعَ الرَّاكِعِينَ. He didn't say وَاسْجُدُوا مَعَ السَّاجِدِينَ صَلُّوا مَعَ الْمُصَلِّينَ. He says وَارْكَعُوا مَعَ الرَّاكِعِينَ. So I said, how come Allah said that to the Jews? Let me ask if you have ruku'. I mean, I know they have sajda, they have ruku'. They said we have some ruku'. We do it once a year. We used to have it all the time. And I said, do you have sujood? And he said, yeah, we did have sajda. We did put our head on the ground. But we have a prayer now in which we complain about how we don't do it anymore. Ya salam. Okay. That's their, I didn't make this up. He told me this. There's a rabbi telling me this stuff. you know. So they lost the sajda and they have something from the ruku' left. So Allah told them, وَارْكَعُوا مَعَ الرَّاكِعِينَ. And He also told me in their prayer actually, the final part is ruku'. That the ruku' comes after and the sajda comes before for their prayer. Right? If they do make sajda, they make it first and they make ruku' later. And when Allah was talking to Maryam salamun alayha, He said, وَاسْجُدِي وَارْكَعِي. Right? He told her, make sajda, make ruku', because in their sharia, sajda came first and ruku' came second. So it's appropriate to the ayah. But anyway, coming back to our subject in the month of Ramadan. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. Then He says, هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ. This part of the ayah is a slap in the face. He says, Quran is guidance for all people. This ayah is not just to the Muslims. It's also to the Jewish community of Medina. They believe that when wahi comes, it comes for who? Just themselves. Just themselves. Allah says, no. You are not going to this time. This wahi is not just for you. It is for all people. هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ. He didn't even say هُدًى لِلْعَرَبِ, هُدًى لِبَنِي إِسْرَائِيل, هُدًى لِبَنِي إِسْمَعِيل, هُدًى لِبَنِي إِبْرَاهِيم. No. هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ. This is guidance for all people. This is one of the most beautiful things about our religion, folks. It is one of the most beautiful things about our religion. I don't care if you go into a masjid in America or Australia or the Khalij or Pakistan, if there are multiple nationalities standing in one row, you don't make a distinction. The rich people should be in the first row. Middle class should be in the second row. The janitor should be in the third row. Nope. Everybody stands in the same row. And it could be that the boss and the worker are standing together. And it could be that the worker is in the first row and the boss is in the last row. That could be too. It could be that the guy who works for you is leading prayer and you're praying behind him. That could be too. Allah made this guidance for all people. You know what that means? He made all human beings equal. Just by Quran, by the institution of salat. We cannot be racist because we have salat. We cannot be supremacist. We cannot think my nation is better than your nation. My nationality is better than your nationality. My language is better than your language. My skin color is better than your skin color. My village is better than your village. We can't do it. And you know when we are reminded that we can't do that? When we stand together in salat. When Bilal radiallahu anhu is standing next to Uthman radiallahu anhu, we are reminded that we're equal. This is hudan linnas. That's what that means. You know why I'm highlighting that? Because I notice it in Muslims. I notice asabiyya in Muslims. I notice Muslims make fun of other nationalities, look down on them, talk bad about them, talk bad about people that speak a different language. The Arabi makes fun of the non-Arabi. The Bangladeshi makes fun of the Pakistani makes fun of the Indian. The Filipino makes fun of the Malaysian. What's going on here? Don't we make salat? Don't we make salat? Because if we're not learning from our salat, if we're not learning from this Quran, then it's like I tell you, we're just a shell. You know, if you have a shell and you don't have any egg inside, that's what our Islam is sometimes. It's just you look like Muslim, you say the words that Muslims say, but inside your heart, there's no love for your deen. Every one of us here that are sitting in this audience, so many different countries are sitting in this audience right now. It's such an international gathering right here. This is a United Nations meeting right now, you know? Let me tell you, I don't know your name. Some of you know my name. I don't know your name. But you know what? We have a relationship with each other that is thicker than blood. It is thicker than blood just because of La ilaha illallah. Just because of that. This Quran binds us together. And this was told to the Jews. You know why? Because the Jews believed they were special. Everybody else is second class. We're first class. Everybody else is Gentiles. We're the chosen nation. Allah says anybody can become people of Quran. Hudan linnas, open invitation to humanity. That eradicates racism, nationalism, tribalism, egotism. It gets rid of these things. Subhanallah. What an amazing religion. It's such an incredible thing. Even in America, I can tell you, there are black churches, there are Spanish churches, there are Greek churches, even of the same denomination. And then in the heart of Brooklyn, you're going to have, in New York, in Brooklyn, you'll have different churches, different ethnicities. You walk into the masjid, it's an international conference again. All the same ethnicity standing together. They don't even speak each other's language, but they're praying together. The same Quran unifies us. Because when we stand in salat, what are we listening to? It's Quran. هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى. And there are multiple proofs clear evidences for guidance.